I'm Eilie Astara, the creator of the Magikats series, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Ellie Astara about Magikats, the Wand of the Veil, at the 2022 Toronto Comic Arts Festival. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Eilie is a visual storyteller originally from the New York City area, now based in Washington, D.C. She's created a series called Magikats about magic, cats, and friendship that she promotes on her online shop and as a webcomic. Eilie is a Patreon creator and a YouTuber where she creates inspiring and empowering content for her community. Magikats, the Wand of the Veil is a graphic novel about a magical girl, fantastical cats, and the power of animal friendship, illustrated in colorful detail and a unique bubbly style. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Ellie Astara about Magikats, the Wand of the Veil, at the 2022 Toronto Comic Arts Festival. So, Ellie Astara, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate your time. Now, I remember we talked last year, this time, for TCAF 2020. That was all virtual, but now we're talking about an actual event in person, and you're going to be coming to that event. So that's a great thing to hear.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking so forward to it and actually debuting and attending there in person this time.
Sure. Yeah. Well, before I get to my questions, I want to ask you, what's on your bedside reading table? What are you reading today?
So I usually have a pile of books that I need to read through that just sort of stack up and make my bedside look maybe more aesthetically pleasing, maybe cluttered, depending on your point of view. But the books that inspire me or that I keep close to my bedside are usually like spiritual related in terms of Buddhism, or like concepts like the Four Agreements or the Power of Now, like mindful techniques, or magical girl manga, because that's what inspires my comics. So it's usually an amalgamation of those two.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Well, it's glad you're finding time to read, because I know with everyone's different schedules and creating, it can be troublesome to find the right time, but I'm glad you're able to do it, which is good. So we start off talking about you exhibiting at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival this year. So with that in mind, I'm wondering, do you have any favorite past convention moments that you can share?
So this is my first time actually being at TCAF and exhibiting in person, but I was accepted into VanCAF a number of years ago, which is the sister convention over on the other coast in Vancouver. And the best parts of exhibiting or being in conventions are like meeting your fans and meeting your customers face to face and having like micro connections and learning about the people who support you and your art and are like naturally attracted to you, and then like being on the other side of the table and then meeting your inspirations and having that moment and that full circle and community and connection all brought together is my absolute favorite thing, and I've been missing it like crazy these past years.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll all get a chance to get back to that and some sort of normalcy, so that'd be great, that's for sure. So understand that you'll be showcasing a new book at this year's TCAF. I wonder if you could talk a wee bit about it.
Certainly. Yeah. So when I got accepted into TCAF, I was accepted in 2020, and I debuted the first book of my webcomic series called Magikats, the Wand of the Veil. And in this time in between 2020 and now, I've been successfully able to complete the sequel, which is Magikats, the Mystery of the Moss, that will be debuting at this TCAF coming June. And in this volume, The mystery of the moss continues the adventure of Lavender Lovecraft, the human witch who's run away from home and joined the cats in the cat kingdom of Grimalkin Woods. And along with her sassy mentor, Cinny Winnie, and her fairy dog mother Angel, they all embark on a journey together to seek out a plant potion to heal Lavender's spirit plant from the mysterious mixed moss and the mosslings. They discover along the way a lost orphan black cat who dubs himself Magic Boy Boy the Cat and finds home in this gang of misfits. The cloaked villain Nether meets with his minions in the shadows to continue his quest for the Wand of the Veil and Eternal Night. One morning, explosions roar at the front gates to the Kingdom of Cats, so the gang must rush to protect Grimalkin Woods from Nether and his intruders, and thus the Magikats gang is born. And really, it's a love letter to animal friendship and to the preservation of nature, and it makes a perfect gift for pet lovers and magical girl fans alike.
There you go. Was there any inspiration for this story?
Well, the way in which I write, I always start with the theme because the theme to me is the heart of the story. It's the thing that drives every single element and detail a part of the story in a network of different points of views that make different cases on a certain message, and it's become a story becomes an essay in favor of one belief or another. And so when I went into the second volume, I really thought about this time after going through the Wand of the Veil, which is sort of the prologue children's storybook introduction to the world. So I wanted to take this and elevate it to the next level. And with that was setting intentions for the themes, for what I'm trying to say and the message I'm trying to deliver and talk about and discuss with the audience. And I'm just very passionate about nature. The king, it fits so well into the world because the kingdom of cats is filled with nymphs, and which are like anthropomorphized trees. And that was what I wanted to add to this second volume. And what else the other thing that I also introduced was my manga influence, reconnecting with my childhood influences that got me started on this path of storytelling to begin with. And it's been a number of years since I read manga, but I recently started acquiring more magical girl mangas and different action oriented ones that have dynamic and fantasy elements, and really drew on that as inspiration for the fight scenes with the villains, and to make these moments even more dramatic and climactic, to make it more of an epic saga in this next volume. And I'm so glad I did, because it was such a full circle moment to reconnect with the inner child and revisit these things that had sparked the interest from the beginning, and reconnect with that and use that to fuel the creation of this next story. And it really shows through. I'm so proud of it, and it was exciting to create.
That's what it sounds like. And congratulations on doing that. That's tremendous that you're able to accomplish that. That's terrific.
Thank you so much.
I want to switch gears a wee bit now and talk about the tools used to create your art. I wonder if you could walk me through your creative process.
Absolutely. So I get a spiral bound sketchbook, 9x12. So it's big. I draw bigger than the pages, the output pages which are just standard comic size. And so I get it bound on the top so I can like flip vertically as opposed to horizontally. So you don't have that edge like in a bound book sketchbook. And on the sketch, I just sort of start sketching out the panels, the moment as I read the page and in the script, what's going on, let it ruminate, flip through some comics or mangas to see if there's any like paneling or anything to spark some sort of inspiration or visual in the mind. And so I start with the panels with a red color erase pencil so that when I bring it into the computer, those lines can easily be deleted. But just sort of getting the feeling of how these panels relate, what is happening, how they need to be organized, if it's a action scene, how to make it more dynamic. And once you have the framework, then it's much easier to begin sketching inside. And so I just start finding the composition by breaking it down into shapes and using, rule of thirds, basic compositional principles. If I'm having trouble visualizing something, maybe looking at different sources for inspiration, maybe photography, depending on the thing, like reference or anime or manga or comics or drawing from the real world, sort of just to help marinate that image so that we can visualize and gain clarity to transfer it on the page. Because I find if I don't ask myself that question, it's hard to manage and gain clarity of direction of what the final output and piece is going to look like. So then once I have all my shapes down, my general compositions and moments figured out, and what I want the camera, so to speak, to focus on, I bring in a black wing pencil. That's my second opportunity to get the lines down, the final lines. And once I have it traditionally done, I bring it into Clip Studio Paint, start breaking up the panels, cleaning all the edges, and then I digitally ink it, then color, highlight, add special effects, flare, text, any onomatopoeias like word art and calligraphy. And the final detail is a texture, and then it's good to go.
Wow, that's great. That's a pretty involved process. I wanted to ask you. You did mention about real world scenarios, the nature and stuff. And I know that you're in the New York City area. Do you have the opportunity to get out and envision, see where real world scenarios might be, a park or something that you can incorporate into your story?
So actually, I've relocated since the pandemic from New York City. But when I was in that area, nature that wasn't manufactured was hard to find, or you'd have to go far out. And
yeah.
now I live in the suburbs of the DC area, and fortunately, I have a nature path right across the street. Since gotten a dog, so you sure as bet she makes sure we go on those trails every single day, which is good for me, good for her. And I'm able to, just peek into the woods, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's a nice moment. Take a photo, use that for later.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, we've talked about this is your second volume of the Magikats series. Natural question would be, do you see it continuing into the future? Do you have plans for that?
Absolutely. I have the skeleton of the entire story mapped out when I first started writing the series and structuring the world and all of that. It eventually will be a 10-volume saga. But I do see for the immediate future, I will be putting a pause on it, working on writing and things like that. I might take a break with another comic, but it's going to be something that will probably take a decade or more to complete.
Sure.
But, I'll jump in and out. And it's a story that contains all my childhood pets, and actually the pet that I had, who I adopted, a senior cat, Mossy, she had passed away during the creation of this comic. So
sorry.
Thank you. But this comic she's one of the main characters. So that's why I'll always be happy to return to Magikats, because it's a way for me to continue the memory of those pet friendships and families. And I know that other people will relate to that too and connect with their pets and their memories through the story.
Yeah, it's a great tribute to have. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, we've talked about the Magikats series, and it sounds like you're busy. But do you have any other projects that you can talk about that you have going on?
Well, I work on my online shop, and that takes up a pretty portion of the rest of my energy as well as my YouTube channel. But I am thinking of taking a bit of a step back from Magikats and working on a full on manga, Penumbra Mystica, which is, like I said, going to be a manga. It's like a psychological horror romance story and with a love triangle and like demons. And it really works with the concept of the shadow self by Carl Jung. So Elise Park, the main character, has to basically, along with her shadow self, face her inner demons and tame them in order to break out of the shadow realm she's found herself stuck in. And it's basically a lesson in self-love. So I felt like that would be a fun break, as well as a completely different world, completely different style, and completely different story to have fun with.
So we've talked about the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, but I'm wondering, do you have plans to attend any other events this year?
So far, I've gotten accepted into Fairfax Comic Con, which is a local Comic Con in the area. I'm still awaiting acceptance or any news back from other events, but I'm just looking forward to getting out there once again, connecting with people and different artists, and I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Sure. It sounds like you're going to be busy. So with that in mind, I'm wondering, do you recommend a certain website where people can find out more about your current and your future projects?
Oh, absolutely. My website contains Magikats, Penumbra Mystica, and everything that I do, and it is eilieastara.com.
Thanks to Eilie for the chat. You can discover more about Eilie on Instagram at EILIEASTARA and online at eilieastara.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2022.